Dublin, the capital of Ireland, nowadays a vibrant city of culture. Dublin's brutal gangster culture evolved in the shadow of the Troubles, a bloody civil war that tore apart the north of Ireland for 30 long years. Its key players remained in the shadows, but in this film, the man some have called the godfather of Irish crime tells us his story for the first time. Dublin today is an attractive, modern European city. But after the Second World War, the newly independent nation of Ireland was struggling. Thousands of families lived in appalling conditions. Two men born into this dire poverty would grow up to be key players in Dublin's underworld. One was the anarchic Martin Carhill, later nicknamed the General. The other was Christy Dunn, the head of one of Ireland's most notorious criminal families. Now 73, he says he's retired from crime, but opens up about his criminal past.
When we were kids, we robbed, really. When my father was locked in prison, my mother found it hard, and we just took it upon ourselves to make sure she had, you know, the comforts around her.
Dunn was the oldest of 17 children. When his parents went to find work in England, he was left in charge.
I'd have to cook for them, prepare them for school, advise them to do the right things and all that kind of stuff, especially don't get caught.
But Dunn himself was caught for burglary at the age of 12 and sent to a reform school run by Catholic monks. The harsh regimes at these schools were intended to turn young thieves away from crime, but for some, it had the opposite effect.
Made things worse for me, and the brutality and the deprivation was just unbearable. I remember I was in Mountjoy when I was only 14 years of age. That was the main prison in Dublin. The population at the time, I remember, was only 42 prisoners, and I nearly could name every one of those.
In the early 60s, serious crime was rare in Ireland, but that all changed in the late 60s when civil war erupted. The so-called Troubles in the north began after Catholics protested against discrimination and were attacked by the police. Their plight prompted some south of the border to take action. Now free from jail, Christy Dunn was in the thick of it. He was charged with handling a haul of stolen food, which he claims was destined for starving Catholics 100 kilometres north.
They were practically under siege in the north of Ireland in certain areas. We had a lorry load of food which was stolen from a company in Dublin named Mako.
Dunn went even further, forging a link to Sawa Era, a paramilitary group. They secured guns and used them to carry out a string of robberies as a way of raising money to help the fight in the north. His inspiration came from the paramilitaries, who had realised there was money to be made from kidnapping the rich and famous.
Though the Gardaí still won't say who they believe is involved in the kidnapping, it's thought the gang may be members of the Provisional IRA.
But while the IRA used kidnap for ransom or to get prisoners released, Dunn saw it as a way of making money. The postmaster identified Christy Dunn's voice as being the one on the tape he'd been played, but that wasn't enough. So Cryan tracked down one of Dunn's accomplices and persuaded him to testify in court. But Dunn wasn't giving up without a fight, making one last effort to scupper the trial.
While I was charged and pending the courts and all that kind of stuff, the police then came again and they charged me with attempting to persuade a witness not to give evidence or afford at an impending prosecution. I was convicted on that also.
Dunn was jailed for a total of 10 years. He fought for an appeal, but it was rejected. After fighting police through the courts for a decade, he was finally behind bars.
As far as I'm concerned, I was just simply processed into prison. It didn't matter whether I was innocent or whether I was guilty. As far as the judiciary were concerned, the police were concerned, I was going to jail, and that's where I went.
Well, I wouldn't subscribe to being a godfather. Good father, maybe, not a godfather.
Don't miss Liquid Bomb Plot, the true story of a surveillance operation that foiled a terrorist threat, coming soon. Now, there's no commercial break, so stay tuned for brand new Air Crash Investigation.